Shalom. All praise, honor, and glory going to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Karpadash, double honors to the elders and apostles. A great millstone salutation to Yakim that's out there pushing this truth with all honesty and sincerity by way of the highways and byways, going out on the streets teaching and preaching, and also by way of the internet. This is your brother Nayap, and I'm back with another news update. This is for fair use, fair use, fair use, and for educational purposes only. Fair use, fair use, fair use.
Walmart, Target, and Home Depot met with the president, warning there could soon be empty store shelves in the U.S. The number of cargo ships from China carrying everything from clothes to household goods was down 35% compared to the same week last year.
If it's not possible, if we're so far apart that this is not going to happen, then I think the president's probably at a point where he's going to say, well, we're done.
In this video, we're going to look at the ripple effects of escalating tariffs and what it means for store shelves in the weeks ahead, why America's food safety system may be more fragile than we think, and how the United States appears to be stepping away from global leadership, particularly in the Ukraine conflict, at a time when China and Russia, they're growing bolder. As trade routes shift, alliances realign, and old safeguards disappear, what does this mean for those of us trying to stay ahead of these changes that will impact our lives? I'm going to tell you what I'm doing and what your next step should be, what to buy, what to watch for, and what to brace for. I'll also tell you how to enter this week's giveaway and announce last week's winner, so stick around for that. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. If you're new to this channel, my name is Chris, and on this channel we discuss emergency preparedness, aka prepping. Every week we break down recent events and explore what they mean for preparedness, what we should be doing now to become more self-reliant, more secure, and more resilient in the face of instability. These videos are about clarity, not about panic, and we're going to take a look at the headlines that you need to know and what they mean for us. So let's jump in. Tariff fallout. Retailers are sounding the alarm over the imminent risk of empty store shelves due to the escalating impact of President Trump's tariff policies. Major chains like Walmart.
Much of it we don't need. Somebody said, oh, the shelves are going to be open. Well, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30, and maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. But we're not talking about something that we have to go out of our way. They have ships that are loaded up with stuff, much of which, not all of it, but much of which we don't need.
U.S. economy shrank in the first 3 months of the year, fueling recession fears at the start of President Donald Trump's second term in office as he wages a potentially costly trade war. Gross domestic product, this is a sum of all the goods and services produced from January through March, fell at a 0.3% annual rate. That's according to the Commerce Department. Economists were expecting a gain of 0.4%.
Breaking news. So what you're seeing above me are Venezuelan prisoners being held in Texas who are being accused of being gang members and are awaiting to be sent to SECOT. They had a drone flying over the detention center, and the prisoner saw the drone and did this. Now, I don't know about y'all. I ain't never seen no gang members do no shit like this. First off, the uniformity, impeccable. But yeah, so, well.
China is no longer buying American beef. They're buying beef from Australia. China is no longer buying oil from the United States. They're now buying oil from Canada. China is no longer buying American soybeans. They're now buying soybeans from Brazil. China is no longer buying Boeing airplanes. Xiamen Airlines actually just refused to accept a Boeing airplane that had just arrived in China. They're now instead buying Airbuses from France, or they're expanding Comac, the Chinese indigenous homegrown domestic airplane brand, which they just signed a deal to sell several Comacs to Malaysia. So what's happening is the entire world's system is shifting. China can basically buy everything that America sells, except for semiconductors, from other countries. The United States can only buy antibiotics, refined rare earth, iPhones, computers from China.
said, my son is doing homeschooling from now. This, no way, man. No way. No chance. My son will be atheist. No religion is allowed, especially this one. No chance. No, thank you.
Breaking overnight, a raging house fire in Trenton that featured explosions injured 5 people. Viewer video shows the flames on Boudinot Street near Murray Street just after 1 this morning. 1 male occupant suffered burns to his face. 4 others were taken to the hospital. We are checking on their conditions. Witnesses say they heard loud explosions coming from the burning home. You can hear them in the viewer video.
I seen the big fire blaze right there. First, I didn't see anything. I just heard things exploding. And someone came running. Oh, it's a fire, it's a fire. It just so happened, I see the police cruiser been in the corner.
Trenton police went door to door evacuating neighbors. It is unclear what sparked the blaze or caused the explosions.
Y'all, Jerusalem is on fire. And at the same time, it's facing a sandstorm. So they're having 2 crises at once. They said massive wildfires erupted west of the city. Multiple massive wildfires. As of right now, they say they caught somebody with cotton and lighter fluid, and they think he's the one that started it. I don't know. Once again, we having a crazy fire situation. But then on top of that, as you can see over my head, look at the sandstorm, y'all. Do y'all see this shit? So one part of the city is facing massive wildfires, and then you got a sandstorm. Let's just say that person didn't like this fire. What signs will we be looking at? Because to me, that shit seems biblical. I don't know. Y'all let me know down below in the comments on what y'all think going on.
Think how ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists, but they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years.
The courtroom is packed, the tension suffocating, and then bam, the cameras catch it. Whoopi Goldberg collapses. Not literally yet, but her spirit, her swagger, her entire courtroom persona, gone. She's hunched forward, blinking rapidly, one hand gripping the table, the other trembling near her face. The woman who once commanded The View like a queen on her throne now looks like she's struggling to breathe. Because this isn't daytime TV. This is war. And Caroline Leavitt, she just went nuclear. The $800 million lawsuit that Whoopi once mocked is now racing through the court system, fast-tracked by a judge who's clearly had enough of the games. And the result, receipts are flying. Tears are falling. In Whoopi, she's falling apart, publicly, painfully, and with the entire country watching. Before we unpack this total meltdown, go ahead and smash that like button for justice, and subscribe if you believe in accountability, even for celebrities. Did you just subscribe? Awesome, because this is about to get messy. Let's rewind to the exact moment the firestorm was ignited.
These women are completely out of touch with reality, and you're right, ABC should wake up.
Stage was set, the cameras were rolling, and Caroline Leavitt, poised, youthful, and completely unfazed, stepped onto the set of The View like she belonged there, because she did. But instead of welcoming her with open arms, the co-hosts circled her like sharks sensing blood in the water. Joy Behar didn't waste a second. She opened with a sarcastic jab about Caroline's age and appearance, snickering as she questioned whether someone so young and fresh-faced could possibly have real political depth. The audience giggled. The panel smiled. Then Sunny Hostin jumped in with a passive-aggressive grin, tossing out a well-rehearsed one-liner about white privilege, a phrase she's used before. But this time, it landed differently. It felt like a direct, calculated strike. But Whoopi Goldberg, always the queen of the zinger, took it even further. She leaned in, locked eyes with Caroline, and delivered a sentence so sharp it sliced straight through the room. You didn't earn this. You're just a product of right-wing pity politics. The crowd, laughing. The hosts, practically giddy. Caroline, she didn't flinch. She didn't argue. She didn't perform for the cameras. She took mental notes. She measured every word. She memorized every smirk. And just days later, no Twitter rant, no podcast meltdown, no cryptic Instagram story. She dropped a legal bombshell, a defamation lawsuit so massive it didn't just shake The View, it rocked the entire media world. 800 million filed, served, public. And every word Whoopi had spoken was now Exhibit A. In the beginning, the ladies of The View treated the lawsuit like a joke. She's reaching. Whoopi laughed. It'll be tossed. Sunny scoffed. They chuckled. They brushed it off on air. They assumed it would disappear just like all the other scandals that fizzled in 24 hours. But this wasn't a viral blip. This was a legal avalanche. Because now, the lawsuit is speeding up. A court-approved acceleration order has moved everything into high gear. That means depositions are being scheduled ahead of time. Witness lists are growing by the hour. Discovery is expanding to include off-air communications. Testimony prep is already underway. And Whoopi, she's not ready. The case is barreling forward faster than anyone at ABC ever imagined. And Caroline's legal team, they're not just playing hardball, they're coming for blood. They've demanded complete raw footage of the segment in question. Internal production notes, segment rehearsal records, all communications between producers and co-hosts during the planning phase. They've even subpoenaed Slack threads from the control room. And according to one source familiar with the case, what they're finding is bad. Really bad. Because this isn't just about one line from Whoopi. It's about a pattern. A pattern of mockery. A pattern of targeting. A pattern of performative outrage that just got way too real. And now, there's no hitting pause, no cutting to commercial, no laugh track to cover it up. Just the truth, under oath. And Whoopi, she's front and center. The courtroom is tense. You can hear the rustle of legal papers, the soft hum of reporters' pens scribbling, and the quiet buzz of cameras adjusting their lenses. Then, boom, Caroline's legal team drops the first piece of evidence, a document stamped with time codes, internal notes, and direct instructions from producers at The View. It reads, "Have Joy needle her on age, then let Whoopi go hard. It'll trend." The gallery gasps. Another piece flashes on the screen. Keep the camera tight when Caroline reacts.
The majority of Gen Z have an unfavorable impression of Israel. And my friends, I think the reason for that is that we're losing the digital war. Okay, they're getting their information from TikTok and whatever it is, and we're losing that war. When you think about it, the masters of the universe are Jews. You know, we've got Altman and AI, we got Zuckerberg, we got Sergey Brin, we got the whole group across the board. Jan Combs, founded WhatsApp. It's us. And we have to figure out a way to win the digital battle. Amelia, we got to get our digital sneakers on so that the truth can prevail over the lies. And when we do that, the future of Israel will be stronger because a majority of all Americans will support Israel. We'll make that happen. We have to make it happen. Thank you. Baruch Hashem. Thank you.
This is the Jewish homeland, and that they have every right to be there, that they're the indigenous people, and that the people who are there are these Arabs who've come from other places, and that they shouldn't be there. So I want to play this for you. This is Naftali Bennett. He has been the opposition of Netanyahu. He's many think would be the next prime minister, and yet these are the types of things he believes. He has this 3-minute, he says this is a 3-minute, 3 minutes of the history of Jews and Zionism. Let's watch what he has to say, and then we're going to break it down.
I'll do something I've never done, and I'll try in 3 minutes to do the history of Jews and Zionism, starting now. The Jewish people first entered the land of Israel 3,300 years ago, and everyone can read that in the Bible. Assuming you don't believe the Bible, then you can look at archaeology, which shows evidence of about 3,000 years ago. There's no dispute that.
Hold on a second. I want to pause this. Let me just go ahead and do a pause. So let's back this up just for a second. So he says, let's go ahead and play this.
Then you can look at archaeology. Jewish people first entered.
There it is. The Jewish people first entered. So he's saying the Jewish people first entered.
Jewish people first entered the land of Israel 3,300 years.
Okay, so they came from somewhere else, right? So he's going to tell us this is why the Jewish people belong here. This is why these other people don't belong here. And he's saying, first of all, the people were here, they came to the land 3,300 years ago. And if you don't believe the Bible, then you can believe archaeology. They came to the land 3,000 years ago. So there were people already there. This wasn't, in the Bible, it even says this wasn't like desolate, just empty land. There were people that were there, the Canaanites, and that Abraham showed up with his family. So where does scholars say Abraham came from? Well, scholars say that, says the Bible states that Abraham was raised in Ur of the Chaldeans. Most scholars agree that Ur, that area was the Sumerian city of, anyway, they say it's about the city where Abraham comes from is about 200 miles southeast of Baghdad. I can't pronounce all the names, but 200 miles southeast of Baghdad in lower Mesopotamia in what is now modern day Iraq. So he comes from Iraq. That's where Abraham comes from. That's where the Jewish people come from, because it was Abraham's children. He had 13 children, 12 of them boys, one of them a girl. So there was the 12 tribes of Israel. And that's the Jewish people. Some of that is the Jewish people. So they didn't even come from there, but he's admitting that, but he's saying
conscience, justice, and rationality. Conscience, justice, and rationality are, in fact, Jewish values. The unprecedented onslaught against the Jews has occurred because the Jews are central to Western civilization, a society against which the West itself has so self-destructively turned. October the 7th turbocharged the West's decades-long process of cultural suicide. What should the Jews do about it? Well, many things. First of all, the Jewish community should stop telling ourselves the same kind of lies that have consumed the West. Too many Jews nod along to this anti-Jewish thinking because they have never learned, I'm afraid to say, what Judaism is. We need to learn as a Jewish community to move from defense to offense, from the back foot to the front foot. We need to start proclaiming truths which many Jews find too uncomfortable and think extremist. Truths such as everything that Israel does is in accordance with international law, that the Jews are the indigenous people of the land, the whole land, that the Arabs are the colonialists, that there is no such thing as the Palestinians, that the Palestinian cause was invented only to steal the Jews' identity and history in the land from them, that the Jews alone have legal and historical right to the land, and that anyone who supports the Palestinian cause is supporting Nazi-style demonization of the Jews, ethnic cleansing, and genocide. And that applies to every Western liberal. The West is paralyzed before the Islamist death cult that threatens it because the West is itself gripped by a cultural death wish. The Western culture that stands against the Jews is going down. The West will survive only if it decides to love itself and if it decides to love us, the Jewish people, instead of disdaining us and trying to erase what makes the Jewish people special and what's made the West special too. This is the Jewish moment. Israel understands this. Much of the Arab world has come to understand it too. Now it's time for the West and for diaspora Jews to understand it as well.
They're not Jews.
Do you take President Trump at his word when he says if Russia is unable to...
They just regular so-called Caucasian people who's pretending to be another, who's stolen the real identity of our people. That's it. The so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. You got 3 tribes which make up the Jews. All right, you got Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Today, Judah will be the so-called Negroes. Benjamin will be the so-called West Indies, like the Jamaicans, Trinidadians, and then the third one, which is the Levites, which would be the Haitians. Today, you would know them as the Haitians. None of them people are any of those. They are just so-called Caucasian people. So they fighting over some shit that's not theirs anyway.
make a deal on ending the bloodshed in Ukraine, he'll put secondary tariffs, I think he means sanctions there, on oil coming out of Russia? Or do you think that at this point, the relationship between Russia and America has been rebuilt and that won't happen?
Well, I cannot comment on what you think President Trump meant when he said something.
What do you think he meant when he said secondary tariffs on oil coming out of Russia?
Well, we hear many things coming from President Trump. President Trump said that he's sick and tired of the situation in this settlement, especially yesterday when he commented the statements by Zelensky. And President Trump has his own proposals and has his own style in mentioning those proposals in his public speeches. We concentrate, as I said, on the real negotiations which President Trump supports and instructed his people to continue to engage in these negotiations. I'm sorry, the answer was a bit longish, but it's difficult to explain otherwise.
Mm-hmm. So I ask about the threat of sanctions or secondary tariffs because you recently said in an interview if you had to personally pick sides, you would keep the existing sanctions in place on Russia. You said you've restructured the economy to be self-sufficient, and there is a growing fear that, quote, cunning Americans will lift sanctions all of a sudden to flood our market with services and technologies. So if that's the case, why should the United States consider lifting sanctions at all?
Why do you ask me? You just quoted my statement, and this statement is clear for me and clear to all those who read it. If you have questions to the American side, how they treat the situation, it is not the right address to raise it with me.
So you want to keep sanctions in place? Is that really the Russian position?
I don't want to re-explain what I explained, I think, in quite clear manner. And you quoted, I think, very close to the real content here.
Right.
It was a bit longer than normally you prefer. I know.
Well, back in February, though, one of your colleagues, Kirill Dmitriev, who runs the Sovereign Wealth Fund and has been active in the diplomacy with the United States, said something a bit different. That's why I'm asking for clarification, because he said there is the expectation that American companies would return to the Russian market in the second half of 2025.
Well, the president of Russia commented upon this situation. He said that we have nothing against American company, but those companies who decided to leave their business in Russia might find that their place has been occupied already by Russian or other foreign investors. And in this case, we would not make any decisions which would discriminate those who came to invest in Russia instead of Americans. If American companies would like to come to a place which is not yet occupied, if they want to propose a project, a new project, on top of the previous business ties, of course, we will look into this, and if we find balance of our interests, I think it would be only natural to get into business together.
Well, what areas has the U.S. offered to lift sanctions on? Because it wouldn't be possible for many American companies to enter the Russian market right now under the existing sanctions.
It is up to them to decide.
So no offer has been made?
No. How can we offer something?
The United States to Russia.
Well, the United States clearly tells us that they are interested in doing business together. We never reject business proposals provided they are based on the equal opportunities and treatment of each other and lead to a balance of interest. Specific proposals which are being mentioned in the media, I cannot comment upon. This is not serious. We are not we are not acting like the people in Kyiv who talk to the world through the media, including talking to presidents of great countries.
president believes in fundamental biology. Isn't that something? Which is why he made it the official policy of the United States government that there are only two sexes, male and female. And because men and women are biologically different, President Trump ended the unfair, demeaning practice of forcing women to compete against men in sports and having their private spaces invaded.
Well, breaking fucking news. So not only are the last cargo ships arriving to the United States this week that will be carrying cargo that will not be tariffed, because after this, every cargo ship that arrives in the United States will be hit with 145% tariff. Truck drivers across the United States are quitting en masse. Yes, the truck drivers that are legal citizenships who also have legal driver's licenses are quitting en masse and selling their trucks. So not only are we going to be facing a crisis of items coming into the United States, we're also going to be facing a crisis of items being able to be delivered to businesses.
Institutions, Parliament, condoles and stands with the family as we mourn our member.
Our deepest condolences.
Major U.S. companies say they are seeing the effects of economic uncertainty. General Motors says President Donald Trump's tariffs could cost the company up to $5 billion in revenue. McDonald's says its sales are also going down. ABC's Perry Russom has the latest now from Washington.
Some of the U.S.'s most iconic brands bracing for the impact of President Trump's tariffs and the economic uncertainty they're creating. McDonald's says their same-store sales have had their biggest drop since the pandemic, and General Motors says tariffs could cost them up to $5 billion.
Is the administration open to doing more to give automakers relief?
The question, unfortunately, misses the entire point, which is that U.S. automakers have announced dramatic investments and expansions inside the United States.
Ports in California are seeing a steep decline in imports. In Los Angeles, the number of ships coming in next week is down almost 36%. And in Long Beach, more than a dozen ships canceling trips this month. It comes as China, the port's largest partner, faces the 145% tariff, with no end in sight.
We need to have a trade relationship with China that does not do harm to our nation's economic and national security. And that has to be the guidepost of any objective.
As the U.S.'s GDP declines 0.3%, breaking a streak of 33 months of growth in a row, Trump yesterday blaming President Biden.
This is Biden, and you can even say the next quarter is sort of Biden.
Trump later acknowledging his tariffs will cause prices to go up.
Well, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30, you know? And maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally.
Still no trade deals have been announced. Trump telling a town hall last night, "I'm in less of a hurry than you are." His trade representative says they are in the middle of negotiating with multiple countries. In Washington, Perry Russom, Channel 6, Action News.
Everybody stay back. Please stay away. Get back. Guys, get away from him.
Some of the protesters got a warning twice to vacate so they can open up Broad and Vine, and you can see some are now being put in zip ties and being led away over to a bus that's over there. We've seen at least 2 others being put in zip ties. So as you can see back over here, there's a line of officers here. I'm going to see if somebody will talk to us and see if she'll say anything to us about what's going on right now. Do you have anything to say? No?
Solidarity.
Is it worth it to make a stand like this?
Solidarity forever.
Call 911. Call 911. How can you do that to a man in a wheelchair?
Don, you're wrong. You're wrong for what you do. She's good. You're done. You play.
Man, don't touch that man.
Too much game.
Call 911. Call 911. How can you do that to a man in a wheelchair? You're not hurt. The children were fine. I saw what happened. I was standing